Most people want to be heard. They talk to fill silence. They explain themselves when no one asked. They announce their plans before the first step is taken. They need others to know what they are doing, what they are thinking, what they are working toward. And then they wonder why the results never come. Marcus Aurelius did the opposite. He ruled the most powerful empire on earth, with millions of lives depending on his every decision, with wars that stretched across decades, with enemies not only on the battlefield, but inside the palace walls, and he kept a private journal that no one was supposed to read. Not to record his achievements, not to preserve his legacy. He wrote to remind himself to live better, every day, in complete silence. That journal, thousands of years later, became one of the most influential books in human history. We call it Meditations. Not because he wanted fame, but because he was trying to become better, quietly, consistently, without an audience, without anyone knowing. And that is the first lesson, the foundation for everything that follows. The truly strong do not need the world to know they are strong. They only need to know it themselves. Principle 1. Silence is not weakness, it is discipline. There is a certain kind of person you have certainly met, or perhaps you have been this person yourself at times. They feel the need to respond to everything. Every criticism gets a reply. Every slight gets an immediate reaction. Every disagreement turns into a prolonged debate. Someone says something wrong online, they have to comment, have to explain, have to prove they are right. They call it standing up for themselves. In reality, it is a loss of control. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are." Notice the order: calm first, clarity second, not the other way around. You cannot see clearly when your mouth is already open. You cannot think deeply when emotion is driving your fingers across the keyboard. You cannot make a wise decision when wounded pride is sitting behind the wheel. Silence is not surrender. It is not that you have nothing to say. It is not that you accept injustice. Silence is choosing where your energy goes. The person who stays quiet in an argument is not losing. They are watching, thinking, deciding whether this is even worth their time and energy. And, most of the time, the answer is no. Think about the last time you said something in anger. Did the outcome improve? Or did it simply make everything more complicated, more drawn out, more costly in time, in relationships, in peace of mind? Weak people react immediately. Strong people observe first, think second, then act, or choose not to act, deliberately. The next time someone provokes you, try one thing: say nothing. Not because you are afraid, not because you have nothing to say, but because you are choosing not to be moved by someone else. That choice, made consistently, day after day, slowly becomes character. And character, once formed, cannot be taken away. Silence is not slow. Silence is controlled strength. Principle 2. Your inner world determines your outer results. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control what happens around them. The promotion, the relationship, the economy, the weather, what other people think of them, what other people say behind their backs, whether the social media post gets enough likes, whether the boss notices their effort, whether the partner will change. And they exhaust themselves, not because life is too harsh, but because they are pulling a rope with no end. Marcus Aurelius spent his entire life doing the opposite, trying to control what happened inside him. Not what others thought, but how he responded to what others thought. Not the outcome of the battle, but the state of his mind before, during, and after it. Not whether the empire would fall, but whether he was living with dignity in each moment. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That sentence sounds simple, but living it is not. Because the human brain is wired to pay attention to external threats. We evolved to worry about our environment, to react to danger, to monitor what others are doing. But in the modern world, most of what we call threats are not genuinely dangerous. A difficult email, a tense meeting, a negative comment, a plan that did not go as expected. Your brain processes them as if a predator is attacking. Your body releases cortisol. You lose sleep. You become irritable. You carry the anxiety throughout the entire day. And none of that solves the actual problem. The Stoics did not deny that the outside world exists. They were simply very clear about the boundary between what they could control and what they could not, and they only invested energy in the former. When you stop wasting energy on things outside your control, something shifts deeply. The same hours in the day suddenly feel longer. The same problems suddenly feel smaller. The same person suddenly feels calmer. Not because the world changed, but because you changed the way you see it. The real battlefield is inside. It always was. And the person who wins there will win everywhere. Principle 3. Do the work, do not announce it. There is a fascinating psychology experiment conducted in 2011. Researchers divided participants into two groups. Both groups had the same goal to achieve. The first group kept their goal to themselves. The second group was asked to share their goal with others and received encouragement and support in return. The result? The group that shared their goal accomplished less than the group that stayed silent. The reason? When you announce your goal and receive congratulations, your brain processes it as if you have already achieved it. The feeling of satisfaction arrives early, and the motivation to actually do the work decreases. Marcus Aurelius did not need a scientific study to know this. He lived by it 2,000 years ago. He did not announce his virtues. He practiced them, daily, in private, without needing anyone to notice, without needing anyone to acknowledge it. The Stoics called this ascesis, deliberate practice, in silence, without external reward. Think of the person who quietly wakes up an hour early every single morning for 5 years straight. No stories posted about waking up early, no photos of a coffee cup at 5 a.m. paired with a philosophical caption, no telling friends about their self-improvement journey. Just the work, day after day, in the dark, while the rest of the world is still asleep. One day, the results appear, and they speak loudly, precisely because that person said nothing. On the other hand, think of the person who begins every year with a long list of goals, posts it online, and receives hundreds of likes and encouraging comments. Then February comes, and the list has long been forgotten. Attention is a drug. It gives you the feeling of progress without actually making progress. The person who truly wants to change does not need an audience. They need discipline, and real discipline always happens in silence. Win quietly. The noise will come on its own when the results have already said everything. Principle 4. Stillness is a weapon. We are living in the noisiest era in human history. Every day, you receive hundreds of notifications. Thousands of pieces of information compete to capture your attention. Social media was designed by the world's best engineers with one single objective: keep you scrolling for one more second. News is written to trigger emotional reactions, not to deliver genuine information. Advertisements follow you everywhere you go. And in the middle of all that, most people have forgotten how to sit still. They need background music while working, need a podcast while walking, need their phone while waiting, need a screen while eating dinner, need something, anything to fill the gap of silence. Because silence, for many people, has become something frightening. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire during war, plague, and political betrayal. The pressure he faced cannot be compared to anything we encounter in modern life. Yet every morning, he still found time to sit with his thoughts. No noise, no distraction, just himself and the questions that mattered. He wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That sentence was written during a military campaign, surrounded by the sounds of war. If he could find stillness in those conditions, you can find it in yours. Stillness is not the absence of action. It is not laziness. It is not passivity. Stillness is the foundation of precise action. The archer who rushes the shot misses. The one who breathes deeply, locks onto the target, feels every muscle in their body, then releases hits, not by luck, but as the result of inner stillness. Before you reply to that difficult email, pause for 5 minutes. Before you make a major decision, sleep on it. Before you say something in anger, count to 10. Before you react to the news, ask yourself, does this actually matter to my life? Stillness does not make you slower, it makes you more accurate. And in a world full of rushed reactions and emotional decisions, accuracy is the greatest competitive advantage you can have. Principle 5. Expect nothing, prepare for everything. There is a particular kind of optimism that is quietly dangerous. Not the kind that helps you stand back up after failure, not the kind that lets you see opportunity inside difficulty, but the kind that makes you believe everything will go exactly as planned simply because you want it to. That kind of optimism is not strength. It is incomplete preparation dressed up as a positive attitude. Marcus Aurelius understood this more deeply than almost anyone. He practiced what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Every morning, before the day began, he would sit down and mentally walk through what could go wrong. The meeting could fail, the ally could betray him, the plan could collapse, his health could deteriorate, the people he trusted could disappoint him. Not to become pessimistic, not to live in fear, but so that when those things actually happened, and they always happened, he had already met them in his mind. No shock, no paralysis, no desperate question of, why is this happening to me? Just a calm, clear, prepared response. Compare two people walking into the same important meeting. The first person believes everything will go smoothly. They have not prepared for difficult questions. They have not thought through scenarios where they get challenged. They have no backup plan. When the other side raises an unexpected objection, they stumble. When pushed back on, they lose composure. When the outcome falls short of expectations, they fall apart. The second person sat down the night before and asked themselves, what is the worst that could happen here? How will I respond if it does? They were not afraid, they were prepared. When the unexpected question comes, they already have an answer ready in their mind. When challenged, they listen calmly. When the outcome falls short, they already know the next step. This is not cynicism, this is clarity. This is not negative thinking, this is mental training. A soldier who trains rigorously is not afraid of the battlefield, not because they do not know the danger, but because they have faced that danger thousands of times in training. When the real fight comes, their body and mind already know what to do. Premeditatio malorum is mental training for everyday life. Every morning, before you look at your phone, ask yourself, what could go wrong today? How will I respond if it does? Not to worry, but to prepare. Expect nothing, prepare for everything. And when life throws the unexpected at you, you will not be surprised. You have already been there, in your mind, long before it arrived. Principle 6. Let your actions speak across time. Marcus Aurelius knew he would die. Not in the vague way most of us think about death, something distant, abstract, that will happen someday far in the future. He thought about it specifically, regularly, clearly. The Stoics called this practice memento mori, remember that you will die. Not to live in dread, but to live with focus. Death, when looked at directly, has a strange effect. It filters away everything that does not matter. It clarifies what is truly meaningful. It reduces small anxieties to their actual size, very small. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Read that sentence one more time, slowly. How many people do you know who are existing but not truly living, waiting for the right moment, postponing what they really want to do, living a life that is not quite theirs because they are afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of change? Marcus did not ask, "What will people think of me today?" He asked, "What kind of person am I becoming?" That is the essential difference between a person who lives for image and a person who lives for character. The person who lives for image needs an audience. They are kind when someone is watching. They work hard when the boss is in the room. They say the right things when the crowd agrees. But when no one is looking, the standard shifts. The person who lives for character carries that standard within themselves. They behave the same whether or not anyone is watching, whether praised or criticized, whether succeeding or failing. Because they do not do the right thing to be recognized, they do it because it is the right thing to do. And here is something interesting about time. People who live for image may become well known for a while, but image does not last. It depends on the attention of others, on the trends of the era, on the luck of circumstance. Character is different. Character is built through thousands of small decisions, in moments when no one is watching, across many years. And once it is formed, no one can take it away. Marcus Aurelius died more than 1,800 years ago. But what he wrote in his private journal, what he never intended for anyone to read, is still changing the lives of millions of people to this very day. That is the power of character that was truly lived, not performed. Live in a way that 10 years from now, you will not be ashamed of. Not because others will remember, but because you will. Principle 7. See the obstacle as the path. In 161 AD, Marcus Aurelius became Emperor of Rome. Within a year, his empire faced war on the eastern frontier. Then, a massive plague swept through the empire, killing millions. Then, floods devastated key agricultural regions. Then, political uprisings broke out inside the palace itself. His reign, by any reasonable measure, was an unbroken series of disasters. And yet history remembers him as one of the greatest emperors Rome ever had. Not despite those disasters, but through them. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is not abstract philosophy. This is the summary of an entire life spent facing things beyond his control and finding a way to turn them into fuel for moving forward. Most people see obstacles as interruptions. Something is blocking the path. The plan is broken. Progress is stopped. And the first question they ask is, why is this happening to me? That is the question of a victim. It solves nothing. It only keeps you frozen in place. The Stoic asks a different question. What is this asking of me? A completely different question. It shifts the perspective from passive to active, from victim to agent, from why me to what can I do with this? The business that fails teaches you what no business school ever could. Lessons that only arrive when you have actually lost money, lost time, lost confidence. Expensive, but irreplaceable. The painful rejection shows you exactly where you need to grow. Without being rejected, you would never know where your weaknesses truly are. The difficult person at work is the teacher of your patience, the kind of lesson you cannot learn from books, only from experience. The relationship that falls apart forces you to look honestly at the parts of yourself you have been avoiding for a long time. Nothing is wasted. Nothing if you look at it correctly. This does not mean suffering is good. No one should seek out pain for its own sake. But when suffering comes, and it will come, for everyone, the only question that matters is, what will you do with it? You can let it crush you, or you can use it as fuel. What stands in the way becomes the way, not through magic, but through your deliberate choice to see it that way. Principle 8. Be relentless about who you are becoming. This is the final principle, and perhaps the hardest. Not because it requires you to defeat an external enemy, not because it demands you face brutal circumstances, not because it asks you to sacrifice something grand. It is hard because the enemy here is yourself, the lazier, more comfortable, more lenient version of you. Marcus Aurelius was emperor of Rome. He had every reasonable justification to relax, to enjoy the privileges of power, to let others handle the difficult things. He was already wealthy enough, powerful enough, respected enough. If he had wanted to live in luxury and do nothing, no one could have stopped him. No one would have dared. And yet every morning he woke up and wrote in his journal the harshest questions he could ask of himself. Was he living up to his values? Was he becoming arrogant? Was he letting comfort soften his character? Not occasionally, not only when something went wrong, but every single day. He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." Read that line again. How much time have you spent thinking about changing, talking about who you want to become, planning for the better version of yourself? And how much time have you actually spent becoming that person? This is not a criticism, it is a question all of us need to ask ourselves regularly, because it is very easy to live in the gap between who you are and who you want to be, and fill that gap with promises, with plans, with tomorrow, with when conditions are better, with when I feel ready. But conditions will never be perfect. Readiness does not come before action, it comes from action. A good person is not someone who has never stumbled, not someone born into favorable circumstances, not someone with a perfect character from the beginning. A good person is someone who, every single day, makes small decisions to live in alignment with what they believe is right. Without applause, without anyone acknowledging it, without reward. Just the quiet, repeated decision, day after day. That is how character is built, not in grand moments, but in small choices that no one sees except you. There is no finish line. There is no day you wake up and think, I am done. I have become a good person now. That is not how it works. Just the work, done well, in silence, every day, until the last one. The world rewards the loud. Social media feeds overflow with people declaring success, showcasing results, performing busyness. Algorithms favor content that provokes. Attention flows toward whoever shouts the loudest. Looking at that, you might think that to succeed, you too need to be loud. But look closer. Look at the people who have genuinely built something lasting. The people who carry real calm, not performed calm. The people who have passed through both success and failure without losing themselves along the way. They were never the loudest in the room. They were the ones thinking while others were reacting, preparing while others were worrying, working while others were announcing, staying silent while others were arguing. They did not win by defeating others. They won by consistently surpassing the version of themselves from yesterday. Marcus Aurelius was one of them. An emperor who wrote in his journal in the dark. A man who asked himself every morning whether he was living rightly. A leader who chose character over image, substance over performance, truth over comfort. He was not perfect. He knew that. That is exactly why he kept writing, kept questioning, kept trying. And 2,000 years later, we are still reading what he wrote. Not because he wanted to be remembered, but because he lived honestly. That is the only legacy worth leaving. You can do the same. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are better, not when you feel ready. Right now, in this moment, with your very next small decision. Be silent, think deep, win quietly.